Okay. She really summarized it way better.
You're going to be pro with that. You're going to walk back for all You're volunteering your time, sure.
So he wants to know where, I guess you have to say so.
He's very aware.
I was Bear Jackson.
Yeah, he said he went.
I thought you tagged you there too.
No, I didn't go. He said there was lots of carbon good. Probably those spice for sure.
I know, right?
Just teasing. You know, nothing lines up right. He's some sort of, right now the biggest rate he says is people paying stupid money. But you know, it's a generation. It's a generation. People retire when they have one.
All of a sudden they get access to the 401k.
Yeah. When I retire, I'm buying. So that's what's happening. Every year the miles from 150, that's going to be 60. Retire, car.
To go find my car right now. That's right. I want something with traction.
Some fancy
control and all that. Push a button.
Oh, I can slave it.
That's like your car sitting in a rack for 20 years. He does in 5 years. Forget it. I'm going to do it for the kids.
That's what I thought. No, exactly. That's exactly what happened.
That is exactly.
Is it interesting doing it?
We can rebuild the whole thing. No.
Letter from somebody
I went and played again today.
wants to comment on access.
Yeah, public hearing's closed.
Gotta sell something every day, it's $50 a
And
day.
we don't have
Yeah, right.
correspondence.
Well, I'm sure that we can certainly looked at it every which way to Sunday, so, you know.
Well, you were, I didn't miss the last one. You guys were really well prepared for the first one, yeah.
I got some good news today, yeah.
So I wasn't looking for it. This is my town, I live here now,
Yeah.
it's South Windsor now.
Yeah. When did you?
About 2 years ago, I lived in a little house. About 3/4 of a mile from here.
Your practice is still in South Windsor, though.
Yeah. But it's my town, I live here, and I'm really supporting the revenue. I pay for it,
Let me get it off the wrap.
yeah. But I did, you'll be in it for hopefully for a long time, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Keith.
There's one right at the intersection.
I stopped working like cheap. You had 2 minutes to spare. Fresh out of the tree.
I went to
We're going to get started. Good evening, call to order meeting number 1742 of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 6:30 p.m. We have a full board. 5 regular members are here and 2 alternates.
We have one alternate missing.
Yes, less one alternate, correct. Thank you, Frank.
Oh, that's right, Marty did say she wasn't.
Okay.
She has a class tonight.
Move right into old business. MMCT Venture LLC site plan approval in connection with development of proposed casino at 93, 105, 113, 115, 119 Prospect Hill Road. All properties are located in the HIZ. Deadline for decision, July 26, 2018.
Good evening, Dory Fengledi from Kahan Bernstein Capicella for the record. I presume you do not want me to be redundant and do a recap or summary even of the whole presentation. So,
Please no.
Okay, thank you. We will incorporate everything from the prior records on the GDP special permit into tonight's meeting. That really leaves us with two primary topics to start off discussion tonight. Having heard everything, all the comments from the last meetings, really traffic, in particular the existing exit out of the site onto Route 140 and sidewalks were the two primary issues. Obviously, if other things come up and come to mind tonight, we can talk about any of the site elements, but really those were the two primary ones that we needed some time to go back, chit-chat about, try and come up with some options for and additional information to present to you. So with that, we're going to start with traffic, and I'm going to have our traffic engineer, Mark Bertucci, get into that with you.
Good evening again. I'm Mark Bertucci, Senior Transportation Engineer at Fuss & O'Neill. Also registered professional engineer and professional traffic operations engineer. We heard several comments from you at the last meeting, and I summarized some of them. There's 4 or 5 of them that I wanted to just review with you and kind of explain our responses and how we intend to address them. The first one is the site driveway on Route 140, and I think the concern was, or the suggestion was, since we had a pretty small percentage of traffic that's projected to come out of there, there was a recommendation that we consider eliminating that right-out only driveway and look at the other site driveways and potentially redesigning them to accommodate delivery vehicles. So I presented at the last meeting that right-out movement really important to the overall traffic operations in that we have to have the bus traffic as well as delivery vehicles exit via that right-out driveway onto Route 140. That's the way they're all getting directed, again, from the area here where you have the buses and the delivery trucks are going to be signed to come out here. So initially we looked at, is there any other way to get the trucks and the buses out of the site via that existing driveway out on the Route 5. This is a driveway that's been in place for the Showcase Cinemas for a number of years. And we looked at it, we ran, well, first of all, it's a very steep driveway, so it's difficult for the larger vehicles to get out, particularly in the winter when you have snow and ice conditions. But the curvature of the driveway as well is difficult. This is an auto turn movement that we ran in red, so this is a larger vehicle, a 50-foot vehicle, trying to maneuver its way up the driveway and exit. And as you can see, it's frequently curve here and then up again here. It's encroaching on the center line of traffic, and when it tries to turn out onto Route 5, it basically swings out and takes up all 3 lanes of traffic and encroaches upon the northbound vehicles. So, if you have cars waiting at the light there, obviously, the truck really can't make the turn when it's got a green signal. So that option really is not going to work for getting the larger vehicles out of the site. So next we looked at, is there a way maybe we can reconstruct this driveway to make it safer, more efficient for trucks and vehicles to get out. So this is a scheme we started looking at where we brought the driveway further up, try to make some longer, straighter segments in the driveway to mitigate some of that slope and some of the turns. But what we found is, we still end up with a very steep driveway. We still end up with some sharp turns, and even in this condition here, we're still getting centerline encroachment with the trucks, coming around this turn, and we still go into the turn lane on Route 5 there. Not only that, looking at what the cost would be to construct something like this is really, quite frankly, it's astronomical, because you're bringing in quite a bit of fill here between Route 5 and the driveway. The soils aren't very good on the site. You've got to bring a lot of material in. You end up with a very long, high retaining wall all the way along the southerly portion of that drive there. So, it's to the tune of millions of additional dollars to the project, something that really would kill the project cost, that substantial, and for a benefit, not really getting the benefit out of the dollar there for that. So lastly, we looked at one other option, and it had been suggested at the last meeting, was to bring the trucks and the buses through an access easement that exists through the shared access drive of the Walmart. But that access easement, it doesn't go around, it goes straight across the front of the building and right across the front of the Big Y supermarket. So what you would have is a condition where we'd have buses and trucks crossing, right where you've got all your people with shopping carts crossing from the parking lot into the front door, and the children and everything. That's just not a safe condition, and something that we would want to encourage either. So that's just a little bit of the history about where we came out with, the need to direct those larger vehicles out the right-out driveway onto Route 140, and really is the main reason we need to keep that driveway open.
Mark, can we revisit one of those options? Are you still continuing with the same topic? I don't want you to move off this before.
Okay, yeah, if you have
Can you go back to the first driveway where the existing slide is for the cinemas? Yeah, maybe yes. You were absolutely correct. It looks like that with the auto turn, looks like a truck would encroach on the center line. But most of the vehicles that would be coming down that road would be passenger cars or smaller vehicles. The center line could be moved over a little bit to minimize some of that. And you did make an excellent point. It's just a lot easier to point this over here about an egressing truck. This is not a necessary geometric feature. This could be removed. But this radius over here could be improved to mitigate some of that. So I think that there may be an opportunity to meet somewhere in between.
Yeah, I think something we can look at here, but you do have a steep grade here, and I'm not sure what we can do there. It's so grossly, overturning the lane there. I don't know if you have anything to add there, but as far as the constructability of doing something like that. But,
Just, again, for the record, Craig Lipinski, the Fuss and O'Neill. Can you go to the next slide? So the other thing we tried to do with this was try to improve some of the queuing. So when the vehicles kind of come and approach the street, they come kind of more at a perpendicular angle, and that helps with queuing and that. If in the current condition, you go back one. We don't have that. So you see, you come up and you have to immediately come into the turn, and that slope is really, really steep. So you could have a situation, even if we were to improve that radius, because of the steepness of the slope, where you could have cars queuing on a steep slope, and in the winter, that's tough with a lot of delivery vehicles. So it doesn't solve that issue.
Even coming out on the other hill, it's steep coming out that way too. It's steep both ways. If the buses and the trucks are coming out the 140 side, that's steep too.
Well, Route 140 is at about 7%.
A little bit less.
So it's also on a turn here, kind of curve.
I certainly will agree that Fuss and O'Neill has made a compelling argument that there's not really a home run here. There's not a silver bullet. So we talk about potential safety issues, the undesirable conditions, but you have to weigh that against. So these are somewhat not desirable options. You talked about having the trucks rerouted in front of Big Y and that not being a safe condition. I argue that having the driveway open on Route 140 to allow the rights out are not safe. So it's, who do you want to hurt?
Yeah, I will.
That right of way through Big Y, can that be changed to go to the far east of the parking lot so that you're going all the way around that parking lot and then out?
We can't unilaterally change that.
So
I mean, right now, the easement is where it is presently shown, coming across the front. And
If you came out and then took a right-hand turn
you're talking about.
And going all the way around through and then back up.
You can't make that turn. We checked that. The WB50 can't make that turn.
This has been the problem since day one. I said this 5 months ago.
So building on that, so,
Which turn here, this one?
right, so, okay, that's probably the case, you can't make this right turn, but would there be options pursuing another access point with the abutters agreement to come out to maybe minimize some of that along that concept? And maybe relocate that somewhere else?
Can we revisit that comment in a moment after?
Yeah.
What about behind the building? I mean, same concept as the other direction.
Let me just continue with what I was going to present, because I have, the concern is that this driveway is unsafe, and I have looked at a lot of historical data and back from when the cinema was in operation, and I haven't seen the data in what I've found that this has been an unsafe driveway in the past. I've seen a lot of collisions on the other side of the road with Shell, but let me just go over some of what I've researched, and then we can continue after. So I mentioned at the last meeting that the percentage of traffic that we're anticipating to come out of this driveway onto 140 represents 5% of the total exiting site traffic. So this is the smallest volume of exiting traffic that will come out of the site from any of the three major driveways. And again, that's just a function of the internal site, the way it's laid out, where the parking is, how we're going to assign people to exit the casino. But when you equate that 5% to our total exiting traffic in the highest peak hour of the day, the Saturday evening peak hour, it's only 23 vehicles that would exit that right out driveway. And the amount that would potentially cross over Route 5 is even a smaller fraction of that 23. So we're talking, maybe a couple cars during the highest peak hour of the day. And I mentioned that the State Traffic Administration, the Division of Planning and DOT, has approved those volume projections. We did receive that approval last week, and just for your record, I'm just going to pass that out. That is the approval on those volume figures that I'm talking about from OSTA. But looking at that historical data that I mentioned, the cinema was in operation up until this is March of 2008 is when it closed. It was a 12-screen movie theater, and looking at what that generated based on IT rates, that generates in excess of 1,000 trips, up to as many as 1,200 trips in the highest weekend peak hour. So that's up to 100 to 300 more trips than what we're projecting that the casino will generate. And the theater actually had spikes in traffic. You get that 7 or 9 o'clock time frame in the evening where you've got a whole bunch of movies, letting out, and you get these like bursts of traffic exiting, whereas with the casino you get more of a just a steady flow in and out. Not to mention, when the cinema was in operation, it only had the luxury of, or didn't have the luxury of that third driveway. It only had the existing driveway on Route 5 and the right out. It was also generating a lot more local traffic. You had more Enfield, East Windsor, South Windsor, Ellington clientele that's going to this theater, as opposed to the traffic off the highway. So that right out driveway sustained substantially more traffic than what we're projecting, to the tune of 100 to 200 trips in the peak hour. You had roughly 500 to 600 vehicles exiting the site, and a good portion, I would estimate at least 30%, were exiting through that driveway. So when you look at it from that perspective, and I also look at the actual traffic volumes on Route 140, the DOT has historical data that goes all the way back into the mid-2000s. There was actually 22,000 vehicles per day on that road in 2008, and it's down to only 18,800 today. So there's been over a 3,000 vehicle per day drop in traffic on Route 140 adjacent to this site. So you look at the fact that we had higher volumes across the board, exiting the site and on Route 140. So I went then and I looked at the crash data, the accident data of what was occurring on Route 140 in front of the site from 2003 up until 2008 when the theater closed. And I looked back through all the crash records. I only found 5 incidents of a vehicle having a collision coming out of that right-out driveway, so that's an average of about 1 per year, which if you look at it, on a scale, if you got 22,000 vehicles coming across there, that's a pretty low crash rate. And of those 5 crashes, they were all minor fender benders. There were no injuries in 4 of them and a minor injury in the 5th. So we really weren't seeing any compelling evidence there. We saw substantially higher volumes back then on 140 and from the theater, and we were not seeing any evidence there was a safety issue with that right-out driveway. And again, we're only talking about 20 cars exiting there in peak hour. It was the Shell station across the street, these 2 driveways, which have no turn restriction, they have full access. So you can go left in and left out, which is a much more difficult movement to make when you're crossing 3 lanes of traffic. So those movements were problematic, and we were seeing collisions there. There was about 22 crashes during that same time frame on the other side of the road where those cars were trying to turn into and out. So it was really those commercial driveways that are really causing the issue along the segment of road as opposed to that right-in, right-out driveway. So I did want to, I know you have some concerns, but looking back at the data, it didn't support that the safety concerns on that segment were really a result of that right-in, right-out driveway. I do have a few other points to make on a few other comments that came up, or we can continue this conversation on this now, or we can hold off, whichever you'd like to do. I can continue, or we can...
Yeah, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll revisit it. The 91 northbound off-ramp to Route 140, exit 45. If you can bring up our improvement plan. So, Joe, you had mentioned at the last meeting, you had suggested, so the next plan, yeah. There's going to be a higher volume of vehicles queuing in the inside right lane as opposed to the outside right lane due to the fact that they're going to be wanting to go into the casino and look at extending that double right turn lane. So we are in the process of doing that. We're revising, I haven't done it yet, but we're in the process. We're revising this plan to extend those double right turn lanes all the way up to the point of the door here. So this is going to provide some additional queue storage space for the double rights. And also couple it, we're going to propose and discuss with those to some lane use signage, kind of directing people that are going into the casino or are going to go south on Route 5 to be in that inside right lane, and then the outside right lane if you're going straight on 140 eastbound or north on Route 5. So we're going to include that, and I've held our step 2 submission to OSTA so I can make those changes to that plan. Also, on the 91 northbound ramp, exit 44 to Route 5 in Newbury Road, which I don't have an image of there, but that's exit 44, the exit, next exit to the south, where we are sending some traffic. We are projecting it's going to come off of there. There is and this is another comment that Joe had made, there's a 4-lane approach there. It's currently striped as double left through onto Newbury Road and a right onto Route 5 south. What's happening is you're getting queuing sometimes back towards the highway. You've got a higher volume of right turns there, and maybe not as much with the lefts. So the suggestion is, and we're going to incorporate this as well, is to make that a double left, a left, a shared left through, and then a double right. So we're going to get more queue storage space and reduce that back of queue. So I'm including that improvement plan as well in the step 2 submission. And we'll certainly discuss these with DOT, but I think they would be amenable to both of those improvements. And I had there was one other comment that was brought up by Mr. Kowalski at the last meeting, and it was the intersection of 140 and Route 5. The suggestion was, can we get rid of the right turn on red at that intersection?
There is none right now.
No, can we get rid of the no turn?
Get the no right, that's what I mean. Sorry. So looking at that in more detail, yeah, there are no turn on reds actually in all, not only this one approach, but all 4 approaches. And you know, as I look at it, I think those restrictions are there because it's such a large intersection. There's a number of approach lanes. Stop bars are set fairly far back, so I think the concern is, you know, if you look, you're stopped at the stop bar and you look this way, there's sightline constraint. You're actually blocked by parked cars in the parking lot there. I believe that's the issue, but we will bring it up and discuss it with those for step 2 meeting that's upcoming. I do want to note, though, there's a right turn arrow here. There's an overlap phase, so when these lefts are going, this right lane does get a green arrow, so they can go on that movement. They can also obviously go in Route 140 as the green. So
It's in the proposed condition you're talking about.
No, it's actually there now. I looked at the plan. There is a right turn arrowhead there. But you know, we can explore that. We can explore that. You know, when a vehicle pulls forward here up to this point, the sight line is actually pretty good. It's just stop bar is just so far
Right, so
set back.
can the stop bar be moved up?
You know, I think with these double lefts, you know, you're having double trucks turning here. The concern is that they're going to infringe on that stop bar with the left lane. So the left lane of traffic is queued up there. So it's something we can look at. Yeah.
The elevation change from Route 5 onto your property is not that much of a drop off in that section. If we were to widen to the right to open up that radius, would that then give you your larger turning radius that you need and be able to move the stop bar up?
Yeah, actually, you know, we are proposed. This is.
I'm talking to the south.
Yeah, no, I'm also looking over here because, you know, this double left. I believe we're going to have to do some sliver widening over there. We might be able to swing them out a little more to bring the. But you're talking about here as well.
Correct.
Yeah, we might be able to shave that down a little bit. So it is something we will look at it. I'm not sure if it'll be amenable just because they have an intersection-wide no turn on red restriction. But, it's a possibility.
So currently from that stop line to the exit, your driveway exit, what's the queue length? How many vehicles can you queue up in that section?
How many can queue in the storage lane? I'm going to have to, I don't know off the top of my head.
Not many.
You've got, and if you look at it here, you've got, yeah, but if you're counting, you got 50, I get the little ticks now, I can't do the 1, 2, 3, 4, so you got about 160, got about 200 feet there, a little over 200 feet of right turn storage in that lane today. Basically, it begins where the right out driveway would come out.
That's also shared by through traffic going straight through.
It's an exclusive right turn lane, and then there's 2 throughs, and then an exclusive left turn lane.
Okay.
It's the right turn only right after the right, or the right
Right.
turn only lane.
It starts at
Yeah,
that
it starts
exit?
right as they come out. I drive that every day.
Okay. No, I'm just thinking as far as how much space you have to blend into the lane coming out of the driveway. And then if you can't, you know, if that's already queued up and you can't blend in, how, you know, then you're going to back up into the property.
I'm not as concerned about a backup into the property just because of the low volume coming out, but, you know, we could look into something starting this right turn lane actually a little later, so I mean, it's, you know, one less lane of traffic you have to cross if you're coming out of the right out. But the other issue we were going to discuss tonight was the sidewalks on Route 5. But I'm going to turn it over to Dory to talk about that, unless you want to have any other questions for me on anything I've
Yeah,
said thus
I
far.
do actually.
Okay.
I think your percentage of traffic, the way you have it coming, is way off. You're telling me 5% is coming from this way, 5% from that way, 40% coming from 91. I think there's going to be a lot more local people coming in than you anticipate. You're saying 23 cars coming out of that other exit, or 17. You got 50,000 people in Enfield, you got 50,000 people in East Hartford, you got a ton of people in Summers and Ellington. Now, I think you're way underestimating that.
Well, to recall though as well, we do have, you know, these two driveways, we do have percentages of local traffic coming out of there going to, you know, the local towns in the area. Because, again, most of them are going to be parking in this garage, and they're going to be funneled up to that signal to exit.
So is there going to be a restriction inside the garage that if you're in the garage, you have to exit that way? Or will people be able to get out that other exit?
Yeah. So for the record, this is Dan Thornton from JCJ Architecture speaking. So there is not a restriction on it, okay? Just by the way that the garage works with ramps that connect between the levels, people need to be able to go both up and down. So there is not an intent to prevent people from physically being able to travel that way. But the signage within the garage that says where exit is going to be directing people up to the level 4 exit. So is it physically possible for people to drive counter to the signs and go that way? Yes. But the majority of people are going to follow the directions given and be directed up to that exit.
But so pretty much anybody who's in that outside parking area, they're going to be directed to go up through the parking garage, up 4 levels and exit that way?
That's where exit will be.
But then they're going to, if you're on the ground, I mean, human nature, you take the path of least resistance. You're on ground level and you can see the exit right there. To go up 4 levels through the garage and spin around and get out that exit.
Right.
Human nature is going to be, I'm going out the other.
In some way, but the thing I would point out is that
So to say the ground level is
That's valet.
Is valet. It won't-
No, I'm saying the outside,
Oh, the outside.
that lot there. So if anybody's out there,
yeah, so the thing I would say in response to that is, you know, yes, people who park in that lot, if they know, will, you know, some of them will go that way. As you say, human nature, they're going to take a path of least resistance. However, that lot is a very small percentage of the parking that we have. Again, you know, we've got 1,750 cars in the garage, and I believe there are about 150, so less than 10% in that lot. And that is among the least desirable parking in the facility because it's the furthest walk from the entry. So people by default are going to try to move closer to the elevators, move closer to the entrance. So unless there's a condition where the casino is so full that people are really looking for overflow parking, that lot's going to see very little use, in my opinion.
And you're also going to be able to readily see from this lot, there's going to be a large no left turn sign here, and a 91 sign facing the other direction away from that driveway as well.
Just building off that concept, does it make any sense to have that exterior lot at the north end of the property valet only? So you folks could park vehicles there. I don't think the customers really care because someone's flagging down their car every time.
To do so would skew the parking counts further towards valet than what we think is the planned usage. So we've set up the garage so that lower level has valet that does have more capacity than what's on the adjacent lot and works with the flow off of the line. Although it is conceivably possible but inconvenient to have some valet parking there, I think the bigger rationale against stating that as the argument for misuse would be it's just more valet parking than is needed. But if there were a condition where valet parking did take an uptick and we needed more valet parking, that would be a reasonable place for it to look to.
Well, the only reason why I made that suggestion was because if people, talking about the path of least resistance, people want to go out the same way they came in. So if they just park their car and someone valeted it, they don't know where it came from. So it'd be less likely for someone to use that driveway.
Although if they valet it, then they're going to be bringing it back up to the front in a covered area, and where do they go out from there? They're going to, I think the path of least resistance argument might not be the same, because if they come from the front, Dan, don't they then get directed out to the stretch, and wouldn't they go right and over to that exit? Or otherwise have to wrap all the way around?
What it would end up meaning is that the traffic that is parking here would have to come into the garage, come out to the stop, take a left into here, and then right into here to loop, and vice versa during drop off. They have to come out, come along here.
Not convenient.
So it's not. It doesn't help the site.
For the it's not convenient for the valet purpose. The
But
customer doesn't know what's happening.
Well, it's introducing more traffic into that garage situation.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Because it would be artificially inflated.
Yep. Yep.
When we first had a preliminary meeting, my first comment was traffic in and out of here, remember? A couple months ago, and I thought for sure you guys are gonna come here with some grand plan, but you left the entrance and the exit the exact same it was. I was kind of shocked by that. I know, knowing that hill is, that's your nemesis right there. That hill is terrible. Everybody knows it.
Well, Jim, if
Yeah.
I could just comment on that, and again, I'm not the traffic engineer, so I'm sorry for stepping on your toes here, but I don't want you to think that we didn't think about that. And I don't want you to think that, because this was a preliminary comment from way back.
Yeah.
This is Route 5 access, the existing one is not an ideal one. We did think about it, and when we started doing concepts for a redesign there, because we looked at that early on, knowing it was an issue. And once we started looking at those concepts for the redesign and the grades that we had to work with and the retaining walls and the unsuitable stores and all the bad things about that driveway, and then our contractor, and this isn't, cost is not the only thing, but it is an important thing. And when our contractor started giving us these astronomical numbers in order to redesign that drive, it just was a deal breaker. We didn't even finish the design because we were already in the tens of millions of dollars with construction costs to redesign that driveway. It just, this is a huge project, there's no question. And it does have a large construction budget, but when you start talking about certain numbers exceeding those thresholds, it's just too much to make it work. So we wanted to. So then we're left with, okay, if we can't completely redesign that, what is our option? What do we do? Let's try and work with it. Let's try utilize it because it'll work all right for cars. It will work okay for cars, and we are going to be sending a fair amount of traffic out there as well as our new exit. And that's where a good amount's going to. The problem is it doesn't work for the buses. And if we're going to maintain the 140 exit for the buses and trucks, and we have a very small percentage of cars that go out there too, then based on the information that we were reviewing, the historical, we think it is safe. Safety and convenience is just as important for us, for our patrons as well, because people aren't going to come if it's not safe or if it's inconvenient.
What about Joe's idea of taking the buses and come around the whole backside of the Walmart? Making a lane just for buses and trucks, maybe through that way.
The problem with doing it is that's not something we have the ability to do right now. It would be some fairly significant changes to the driveway circulation pattern on a property that we don't control. And because it's not, as I said, they can't make that turn right now. It would be a significant work in that northwest kind of quarter, and then finding a way to wrap it around. We would be beholden to the neighbor for something like that. I don't know if that has been explored at all. We'd be beholden to them, and they still have their own fairly steep, curvaceous driveway that leads up to Route 5, and I don't know if
It's not
that,
as bad.
it might not be as bad, but it might have some impediments
Touchstone
still.
out, though.
Yeah, and it's just as simple as we don't control that property.
Not yet.
So, we just
I mean,
and the other thing I will say too is that, maybe it seems like a simple change, but one of the main things that we did think about is really concentrating the parking in the parking garage, making it super convenient for people to want to get into the parking garage, and adding a second entry onto Route 5 from the parking garage. So if you park in the parking garage and follow the signs, you're going to come out onto Route 5 in a very safe place, which doesn't exist today. And that's really the easiest way, instead of a ramp, to move up in elevation, is to go through the parking garage and get people there. Where we're talking about these other parking lots, the ones to the north and the ones to the south, those are going to be places that people park last. I mean, if you're going to come to the site, you're going to want to park undercover as close to the entrance as possible. And if you're talking about local traffic, you're talking...
All locals are sneaking the backside.
But if you're talking local traffic, you're talking a lot of repeat traffic, and people that come to the casino frequently are going to learn very quickly the best places to park in the parking garage, to get in and to get out quickly.
It's, just from the picture you have there, I can count, what, a dozen trailer trucks already parked down there. I mean, unfortunately, my wife goes to the Big Y, I think, every day. And I mean, there's tons of trailers in there. I mean, literally
Yeah, they go up the other.
20, 30 trailers parked in there.
I got a question on that center, the center exit. Could you put a one-way for a truck so they can only turn left instead of having to have them hook? Could you make it so it was only a left turn for like a tractor trailer truck or a bus going out their steep exit?
The one all the way to the south.
That one, yeah. If you made it so it was a left turn only for trucks, is that even possible? I mean, obviously, not everybody follows the sign, but if they only turned left, they could clear it.
Is it?
Yeah, nobody else where to get in.
Yeah, I mean, it's encroaching even further down the driveway as it begins to encroach. And that's not, the other thing is just the sheer steepness of it. It's just,
that's the really
it's really hard when you get a bus or
I have a question.
any sort of winter weather.
Most of your supply trucks are coming in at what hours?
My understanding is the hours would be.
I mean, if you're bringing in your food supplies, et cetera, all your, the material needs to be on site by your trailer truck. And when do they come to? Do they come at night, or they come during the day, or do they have a regular schedule?
I can speak to this. So we're not proposing a limitation on the timing, partially because the tenants are also in operation scheduling their deliveries. So the short answer would be that it's, we can't really speak specifically to what time they would be coming.
I guess what I'm thinking, perhaps you can have that hours, and I'm just making up some time, say from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., buses and trucks only going down and going out.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that how that could conceivably be construed as helping with like the crossing of the other lanes, right, preventing the oncoming traffic. The part of the problem with that though is that the casino is a 24-hour facility, and people do come at all times, and so you're going to get that, one or two people who are coming at 3 in the morning, and the last thing that we would really want set up would be to say, well, our solution was that we don't think many people will be coming, so it's okay to cross the lane at that point. You know what I mean? Because then if a car does come while a truck is trying to take that movement, it becomes a safety concern.
But I'm sure that your hours, say from 2 in the morning till 5 in the morning, or from 2 to 6 or whatever, your patrons are, there's less patrons than there would be.
My point would be there are less, but there are not zero.
That's correct. But yet maybe in that time frame, if you could restrict the traffic, you'd solve the problem.
I personally would not propose that as a safe solution.
Yeah, it's still doesn't solve the steepness issue. It's that tremendous grade. And when you add curves on a grade, it just creates more of a safety issue. It's particularly in winter weather as well.
How do all the trucks that we just saw in the aerial views that you had, how did they get down to that parking lot? They came through the Big Y.
They're coming in, the Big Y Walmart has a driveway, its own driveway
Yes.
further to the south, but it's much wider, the curves are less severe, and it's less steep.
Well, if those trails, and some of them are 53 footers, I was down here today and there was a couple of 53 footers in there. And there is a safety problem, but evidently Big Y or owners of the Walmart property aren't concerned about them being in there and traveling through there.
No, they have a different drive that has different topography and different arrangement to get there. Remember, over here, we're at the top of the hill, right? So this is among the steepest points coming down. So they have a longer sweeping drive that.
I think what you're saying, they can get into the loading docks. They don't have to traverse across the front of the building like our vehicles would have to, because we're restricted to that access easement that exists.
If you stick with the present plan and not add any more lanes of traffic, I don't see any way out of your problem without increasing the radii on all the entrances and exits, except for the entrance off of 140. The entrance off of 140 works the way it is. But you need to start your exit going up the hill on 140, okay, farther back, so you don't have that big swing coming out to block the lane of traffic. And the same thing here, both entering and exiting with large trucks. If you want all the buses and the trucks to go out onto 140, the way 140 exists now, and without blocking existing lanes of traffic, I don't see how you can do it without making that radius a more gentle sweeping curve. And the same thing with entering and exit Route 5.
You're talking about this
Yep.
curve on 140. So we are doing work here. This is a different and more gentle curve than presently exists. It's in a very similar location.
Yeah, but you even showed earlier where you're still going to block traffic coming up.
Can I make a suggestion how to make maybe all this go away? Can you zoom in on the driveway on Bridge Street? So Mark, I believe you regarding your traffic study, the numbers and the distribution. It's been approved by professionals. That's what they do currently. They say it's right. You gotta believe that. So this driveway here looks like it widened out to accommodate the buses and trucks. But what that does is, because of the extra width, it provides an opportunity or an invitation for someone to do the wrong thing. If the drive were narrow, it would be less likely for someone to make a legal left out of here, do the wrong thing. You can get back to people, creatures of habit. They get off the highway here, they park wherever. They want to go back the exact same way they came, no matter what the numbers say. That's just what they want to do. So I understand that you need to have it wide, get the trucks and buses in and out of here. But what I'm suggesting is perhaps pursue a raised island down this road so to prevent anybody from coming out of here. And it may require some tweaking over here. I think there's a workable solution that the abutting neighbor will not lose access. It's all about movement here. I don't know where the sweet spot is, where it works for both, considering the neighbor and considering your site. No, I'm not saying the island has to go all the way down, but it has to go in a logical location so no one does the dumb thing, make the left turn out. We'll go straight across.
Yeah, and I mentioned that as an alternative.
It has to be a physical line. We can't use these rubber duckies. It's got to be a minimum of a 4-foot wide island.
We would not object to that item.
Get to keep your driveway. People won't do the wrong thing. Now, regarding a lot of the concerns the commissioners had about trucks trying, or anybody coming out of their driveway, and there's a big queue come down the hill, the state law says you have to yield right away to someone on the major street. You can't pull out of the road if there's all these line of cars in front of you. You got to wait. It's going to back up in your sight. If it backs up on your site, well, that's not good for you. But I don't think it's on a safe condition.
I also think with the island, that might help for pedestrians, because crossing 5 lanes or 6, it might be good to have like a halfway point for pedestrians.
We certainly don't want no pedestrians to cross there. I mean, if they're doing it at their own risk. There's never, ever be a marked crosswalk.
Having an island would...
Pedestrian refuge for those who do try to cut across all those lanes. But, you know, you say put up a 4-foot island in there. I mean, that's tough with that topography and the drainage. You don't have a lot of extra width there. So it's a compromise.
Yeah, we have some width and right of way to play with there, though, and I think we can make it work.
So personally, I'd be willing to live with an option like that. I don't know what my colleagues feel, but I don't know if we're ever going to get over the idea about rerouting all the other trucks for some of the reasons you say. It would be nice if you could pursue in the future a better access with the abutting neighbor. I understand you have to enter negotiations with them and see what you could do through there. That would be better. Does anyone have any opinion from the board about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joe. The only concern I have would be people that are heading up Prospect Hill and they want to go left into wherever they want to go to Shell Station.
Well, it has to be done in such a way it does not disrupt business for the...
And I don't know, but I suspect it could be done. It can be done.
There is a second access point to the Shell right here. So we're not precluding them from accessing it there.
Their driveway is prior, if you're heading east, their driveway is prior to your exit point.
That's
So
correct.
you wouldn't need to start the island until after your exit
Correct.
point. So it would not interfere.
Now, I'm going so far as saying maybe your driveway needs to be shifted up or down to make all this work.
We can look into that.
And I'm not suggesting the island go from Route 5 all the way down to the 91 ramps. That's excessive.
I think that's a great idea.
20, 30 feet might solve exactly what we're looking for.
Well, it would have to start at Route 5 and come all the way down. Because the state's not going to entertain a small island in the middle there. That in and of itself is a fixed object. You have to have an island of significant length so people can see it.
I think that would also slow down traffic if there was an island there.
But it introduces a bunch of other things. The state's going to resist it because it's a maintenance nuisance, so they have to plow around it. There's going to be drainage structures out there, so it's going to be a difficult sell. They own the road. I think it might be something absolutely worth pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if, OSTA will typically entertain if there is a request from the town or the LTA from the town would want something like this, they'd be more apt typically to entertain it.
Any more discussion regarding the driveways from the board?
Excuse me?
This is not a public hearing, sir.
Oh, I thought you asked for comments from the...
No, from the board.
Oh, I apologize.
As you were saying about people coming in, going out the same exit, and you think a lot of people are coming off the highway, like Joe mentioned, they're going to come in that exit, so they're going to go out that exit. If you, I don't know if this is even possible, but to put a sign that says casino at exit 44 and 46 to bring them down Route 5, so that they would go into, so bring them from the exit before instead of having them get off 45.
Oh, you're saying have them try to get off 44.
Direct them towards 44 and 46, it says something like best route to the casino. I don't know if that's tricking people either, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's those blue attraction signs on the highway, you have to make a special request to do that. And I don't recall if there is one in advance of exit 44, but.
Because otherwise, I think most people are going to come off that side entrance, and you're saying before, when it was the cinema, nobody went out that way because nobody came in that way, because there wasn't people coming off the highway. And most people that went to the cinema stopped at Big Y to get candy and sodas first, so everybody came in that way anyway, instead of that's where I think that the numbers might be a little different. Or if the future use of the casino, if you added a concert venue or something where left at the same time.
That's something we can consider, that's something we can look at. But, there will be, as I mentioned, there is going to be a large pylon sign there too, but you're saying you're trying to suggest we divert them away from this exit.
If you're worried about it backing up there also.
Yeah. I mean, it is an easy movement to make the right in, and then right into the driveway. The one downside of that is you're adding more traffic coming off the other ramp, so you're increasing the queue with that signal at exit 44.
Be going through 4 extra
And then
traffic
there's
signals.
4 other signals where you would be forcing people to go through, so, that'd be the downside of something like that.
Or once you know the area, that's what you do. Any other comments from the board regarding driveways or access?
I have
Ann?
one
Yep.
on traffic,
Go
more
ahead.
in general, if
Okay.
you're receptive to another concept. What I'm hearing, and you guys may have already vetted this and talked it through, and I apologize for being new to the board and raising it if it's already been resolved. But the overall general objective is to address environmental concerns as well. And I know you've addressed the stormwater, but with the added vehicle traffic, you have added emissions, air pollution emissions. And I'm wondering if there has been discussion on mitigation for that, because I think this is a prime and ideal site to think about electric vehicle charging. The other casinos have that. This one is ideal in that it's right on the highway corridor. After Hartford, between Hartford and Springfield, there's no fast chargers. You have Electrify America, the VW settlement folks looking to put in fast charging along the highway corridor at destinations. So you may have a partner that would be willing, and currently there's 6,000 electric vehicles registered in Connecticut. And with the zero emission vehicle regulations, about 5% of sales are going to have to be electric vehicles by 2025. So for commute kind of traffic, people can charge at home and that works, but I see this as a destination and they may exceed their range and need to charge. And when I saw the site plans, I didn't see provisions for charging. I saw the handicap spaces. But by encouraging electric vehicles, you reduce emissions, and it seems to me that could be a viable mitigation for the added air emissions.
That hasn't come up for this application. That's a very interesting discussion, considering that maybe the northern parking lot, from what we heard, may not even be fully utilized. Maybe that would be an opportunity, but I'm going to, just tossing it out there, and had that even crossed the mind of the development team?
It's not something that has come up in my discussions with the team at all. Folks, have you encountered that at all in discussions and design plans?
We haven't discussed it as part of the program for this garage. It can be incorporated into garages, but we should discuss with the client prior to committing, because it is not currently in the program.
Is it more likely incorporated in a garage, or the outdoor spaces as Joe
It is
had
more
mentioned?
likely incorporated into a garage.
It's cheaper to install in a garage.
There's already the electrical infrastructure.
And to be honest, I think that if we were to suggest that we should have done that during the general approval, the general permit for this, I think it's too late in the game to actually ask for it. But I think it's you're planting the seed.
I'm planting the seed
they could run with
because
it.
I
It's
think
an excellent
there's
suggestion.
air pollution emissions
Yep.
that aren't being addressed, and they have an opportunity to address them.
Yes.
And it's way better to do it on the front end in the planning than to try to retrofit later.
And it's an opportunity to get some more customers.
Captive customers who need to spend time charging.
Captive
audience, right?
Slow chargers.
Right, make sure they're slow.
Yeah. Well, we can certainly discuss that with our client. Yeah.
Any other comments regarding traffic or driveways before we move on to sidewalks? All is quiet so far.
Okay, so regarding the sidewalks, there have been some lingering questions and concerns regarding the appropriate location for sidewalks. And I will, and we all representing will acknowledge that the regulations clearly give this commission the authority to require sidewalks in locations that you deem appropriate for public necessity and safety. Sidewalks are a recurring issue. I would imagine you probably had a struggle between property owner and town or applicant before on the whole sidewalk issue. Property owners generally don't like sidewalks. They don't want to be responsible for maintaining them. Towns do like to extend their public infrastructure. So it's a common struggle in a lot of these applications. So I'm not surprised it reared its head in this one. First, before I get into the options for sidewalks, I just want to note that the applicant, probably like many applicants coming before you, do not necessarily feel that sidewalks are necessary to adequately serve the patrons that are going to be coming to the casino, to this particular development. Now, we have proposed sidewalks along Prospect Hill Road, not because we think this is going to create a demand for them, but rather in part because of a recommendation by OSTA, and also in part because we recognize that the town may want to expand this type of pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, particularly in connection with your ongoing Route 5 corridor study, which contemplates more pedestrian-friendly infrastructure and complete streets. So in our experience, having operated, not me personally, but 2 casinos, casinos don't generate a lot of pedestrian activity. The casinos are more of a regional destination, but having said that, we would never want to discourage local patrons as well. But we don't even think the local visitors will be typically walking to the casino. We don't expect even the travelers to nearby hotels will necessarily be walking to casinos. They'll likely drive, and if the demand rose to certain levels, perhaps shuttle service would be implemented. That's really more the experience that we've had at both Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods. It's been noted by others during the public hearing portion of the GDP special permit that there are some safety concerns with encouraging pedestrian traffic on Prospect Hill Road. It is a busy road and it's a very busy intersection. The owner of Sophia's Plaza had questioned the need for sidewalks, noting that there doesn't appear to be a current demand, even given the existing retail and restaurants in the surrounding intersection. And another speaker at the public hearing also raised concerns regarding the safety for pedestrians crossing. Even if we provide a signalized pedestrian crossway, they still have some safety concerns. Now, be that as it may, I'm not going to tell you sidewalks are a bad idea. It's for you to decide where they're appropriate and where they're needed. We have proposed them where we think they're most appropriate, and that is where we've been showing them along the east side of the road along Sophia's Plaza. We believe that if sidewalks are constructed in the vicinity, the plaza will be the more likely generator of pedestrians. We just haven't had the experience that the casinos generate pedestrians. And quite frankly, the land on that side of the road is more suitable for the actual construction of the sidewalks. So let's get into that a little bit. There were some questions asked as to why the sidewalks could not be placed along our street frontage on Prospect Hill Road. Dan, you want to pull up that cross-section for me, please? And the short answer is topographically, the land is just not very conducive to sidewalks on our side of the road. You know it's very steep there. You know that because we've talked about the extensive retaining wall system we need on the back side of the garage there. If we were to do sidewalks on our side of the road here, the plans that we had showed you originally, we had a nice approximately 20-foot landscape strip that goes along. We're trying to create a streetscape, and we're trying the best we can to maintain vistas and views. We had the trees, we had the gentle slope down, and then the shrub planting. And so it would all be trying to hide from line of sight of the car the mass of the building and maintain the views the best we can. Now, if we go to the cross-section of the thinking. If we were to put the sidewalks on our side of the road, this is what it would have to look like. We would have to construct an additional section of retaining wall at the top of the slope. It's right here, running along the full length of where the sidewalks would be. And on top of that, there'd have to be a roughly 3.5-foot high fence for pedestrian safety. I mean, that's a slope. You do not want anyone falling down that slope. And then we would have to install the 5-foot sidewalk, narrow that 20-foot greenscape that we've been trying to maintain along the street down to a 6-foot planted tree belts. That's all the area that we would have. And in addition, for other safety, we'd have to have a guide rail along there. So we would have retaining wall with fence, sidewalk, 6 feet that we'd have to squeeze our trees in. The trees could probably be maintained in there, but we lose the shrubs now that we were trying to do for the visual buffer also, and then the guide rail. It would negatively alter the streetscape we're trying to create. It would interfere with the viewscape that we're trying to maintain. And it would cost significantly more. And I know, again, cost is not the overriding factor here, but it would probably, well, it would cost a lot more than I don't have exact numbers, but it would cost a lot more than the sidewalks on the other side of the road. Now, I can't say it's not feasible. You can see from this cross-section, it is, it's just not ideal. And when we have what we think is a practical alternative, why suffer the negative consequences? Why not maintain that streetscape and create that green space along the road and maintain the views without the impediments of the guide rail and the fence? We do recognize, we absolutely recognize the concern that was expressed first by the owner of Sophia's Plaza and then reiterated by some of you on the commission, that placing the sidewalks along the east side of the road would place a burden for those sidewalks then on that neighboring property owner. I would like to note, it would also attribute, if we had the sidewalks there, any benefit attributed to the sidewalks would also be beneficial to them. And again, if we're thinking that we're going to see an uptick in pedestrian traffic here, the plaza is likely to benefit from that as well. But there's no question that the burden of maintenance would fall typically under your town ordinances on that property owner. Now, recognizing the maintenance obligations that would be associated with the sidewalks there, if the commission feels that sidewalks are appropriate and they feel that that's an undue burden on the neighbor, then the applicant would be more than happy to agree to a condition of approval that not only would they construct the sidewalks, but they would be responsible for the full cost of maintenance of those sidewalks along that frontage there. So we would be responsible for salting, shoveling, and doing all of that along that entire stretch. I believe it's approximately 850 feet of sidewalk along that section, if I recall correctly. They can check that number.
That's
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I had 840.
We do feel that under the circumstances, that would be a fair and equitable compromise to be reached, such that we could maintain the visual impacts we're trying to have on our side of the street with the greenscape and the views, and also reduce the construction impediments to actually constructing those sidewalks. Now, another option that I'm going to throw out there for you to consider is you might want to consider, rather than doing sidewalks right now, requiring or accepting a fee in lieu of sidewalks, which we would offer in lieu of doing the sidewalks here on Route 5. Doing so would give you time to finalize your Route 5 corridor study, which we know is looking at this from a more global perspective. And you could then determine where the sidewalks are most appropriate and allocate the fees that we pay to contribute to constructing those sidewalks in the future. This would again be a more global, putting your planning hats on kind of strategy to implement. You could look at it instead of in a piecemeal fashion of when we have a development, we'll get some here, we'll get some here, and you could really do a more strategic planning as to where they're most appropriately used. It would be a much more comprehensive network potentially then as to where the sidewalks are to meet your goals and objectives. Ultimately, that decision's up to you. We do offer it as another option. If you deem sidewalks to be appropriate, whether for this use or just in general in this location of town, and you want to start working towards that goal, we would offer first as the compromise position that we construct the sidewalks where they're more constructible and we believe more desirable on the plaza, the retail side. And then with our contribution towards the full cost of maintenance of the same, or in lieu thereof, accept a fee, and then you can wait and see what your corridor study says and apply those where most appropriate.
Can you show me on that graphic where the sidewalk would begin and where it would end if you were to do it on Sophia's Plaza property?
So this is the beginning of the parking garage, where our entrance crosses across the other source. And then it would begin there and continue all the way up to the intersection with 5 and 4, where we'd have a crosswalk to the other corner. And so we would have connected from our entry to the intersection.
Now, would there be crosswalk buttons installed there where people can change the light? Yes.
In both locations, here and at the garage.
Correct. Right.
So if I jump back to the original request on the big image, so that's starting from this point and running up to the intersection.
Can you pull up one of those things, as a transportation safety official, I can't in good conscience, go back to the other one you have. This is a far better design for pedestrians and much safer, rather than having sidewalks along your frontage. Because pedestrians would have to come and cross this huge intersection. You're talking about, there's a grade challenge here, the crossing distance here, the wide radius here, that is very, very complicated. We already heard that the traffic volumes on this road are a lot far safer to cross over here at this other traffic road. I certainly would support it on the side that you show it.
Especially with that new building going in, a lot of those people are going to be walking.
You're talking about Calmer?
Yeah, Calmer.
Mr. Chairman, I do know that the owner of Sophia's Plaza is certainly concerned about having the sidewalk there. She did express to me that she's concerned about where Friendly's used to be because it's so narrow there, and they don't want to have a harder time to try to find a tenant there. So they're feeling that there's perhaps a negative impact towards there. I think that they'd be happy to have MMCT take care of maintenance, which they would have to do if it was on their side anyway. So,
Lori, regarding that on the other side, from all of the plans that we've looked at so far that have been available, we believe that we can construct those sidewalks entirely within the state's right-of-way and not onto private property. So opposite from the area that's on their own property anyway, we don't think it would be an impediment necessarily. And we also looked at whether there would be some snow shelf.
Correct. That little green shaded area is a snow shelf in between the edge of the road and the pink is the sidewalk. And you can see that light gray line above the sidewalk is where the right-of-way line is. So you can see it's well within the state right-of-way for the majority of it.
How much of a snow shelf did you have there?
That is a couple of feet maybe. It's called out there. It's 3 foot grass buffer.
How wide is that walkway?
5 feet.
I would leave yourself as much of a buffer as you possibly can.
We have some flexibility to increase that buffer. Yeah, there's a right of way, as I said, is pretty wide.
Can I ask also, sorry, I should have asked you this probably before and after. We're showing a 5-foot sidewalk. Sometimes they're only 4 feet. Is 5 feet the standard that the state would require in a right-of-way?
It's typically the standard. I mean, you could go down to as little as 4, but 5 feet's pretty standard for the law.
Any other comments, questions about the sidewalk? Anyone's opinion? Mike?
Yeah, this is something that just kind of started in my head when I was like, currently, in the condition that the way things are, if there was no sidewalk there, I don't see somebody being in Sophia's Plaza or at the restaurant or something and deciding, hey, let's walk over to the casino, if there was no sidewalk there. So this, to me, now seems like it's going to encourage pedestrian traffic by having a sidewalk there. Could adversely affect the restaurant by people now parking their car there and walking over. And I mean, if anybody's been at Sophia's at 6 o'clock, it's hard to find a parking spot to get into the restaurant. It could adversely affect them if people have dinner there, leave their car, and walk over to the casino. Same with the plaza too. People now decide, if I park across the street, you know, it may be more convenient. If there's a sidewalk now, I can walk right over. It could have a negative effect by
I
having a
argue
sidewalk.
that if someone were to do that, there'd be less traffic on the road, one less vehicle trip.
That's good.
You know, and then the Calamar project is building a sidewalk up to the plaza, correct?
Right to
So-
the intersection, yes.
So with the additional,
I'm not sure if it goes all the way to the intersection.
Plans I see right to the
Oh,
intersection.
really? Okay.
so,
I haven't seen
I thought they said it was too steep to get to.
No, we're from Calamar,
right.
to go to Sophia's. I think there's gonna have to be
We
some
had,
steps or something.
we didn't, this commission did not require it, but ASTA did.
Right.
So I just, at some point, I got this feeling it could maybe create a negative effect where it's.
In my view, I hear what you're saying, this. I think we have an obligation to provide reasonable accommodation for all modes of travel. And I think we're burying our heads in the sand to think that there's not going to be any pedestrians out here. There are probably not going to be hundreds, even a dozen. Whatever the number is, they got to get off the road. It is too heavily traveled to have pedestrians and vehicles mix
Oh, no doubt.
on this road.
No
So
doubt.
we should try to take every step humanly possible to try to provide that separation.
What about somebody, if that Sunoco, say that goes away and somebody builds something different there?
Shell.
They go up around or shell, whatever it is.
Or, I mean, they could legally cross mid-block if they want to, but they're crossing at their own risk, unless there's no signs to say you can't do that. It's not wise to do that. It would be inconvenient to go up, but people take the path of least resistance.
So you would expect people to cross the road.
Correct.
like that and do it.
The practicality is they probably won't do it.
Right.
So if you're coming up from Warehouse Point, there actually is a little bit of a, I don't even want to call it a sidewalk, but there's a flat area underneath the overpass that you could walk on the north side. And apparently people come up there and then cross over. I actually was driving this evening back here, and I saw a gentleman do that and cross over to the west side, or the south side. And so I pulled into the driveway for the casino entrance and asked him, said, if you don't mind, you know, we're talking about sidewalks in this area, where are you coming from, where are you going to? And he said, I live over by the library in Warehouse Point, so by the fish market, and I'm walking to Walmart, and I'm going to cut through where the casino will be. So I was kind of surprised at that. He was walking all the way to Walmart. So, but he did exactly that. He walked up the north side, crossed over, and because I think there's some sidewalks on that side.
You can
in
see
Warehouse
it right
Point.
where that, right where he's hovering his mouse. That's where the sidewalk ends, on the north side of Bridge
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah. So there are definitely people that do go there, do visit a lot. I mean, this is one person that I spoke to, but I drive there, and I definitely do see people walking up towards that area.
And it's not that far of a walk. It's exactly 1,000 feet from where the sidewalk ends to the driveway to the proposed casino. An average walking speed of 4 feet per second. You do some simple arithmetic, it takes a little less than 5 minutes
Yeah.
to walk. That is not unreasonable.
Well, then he's going to go to Walmart.
Yeah.
Obviously, the new Walmart.
There are
Yeah.
pedestrian generators in the area. Whether or not people will opt to use them, I don't know.
Right.
I think the other potential thing to think about is the new train station in Windsor Locks and the people who may want to get to the casino who will get off the train. And if there isn't mass transit running, they're going to potentially walk too.
And that is part of our Warehouse Point plan, is to try to connect these two areas.
I think it's important.
So we can suggest to connect those?
So, Laura, regarding the zoning regs.
Mhm.
So there is a section that is development over a certain amount of square footage are required, consider sidewalks or fee in lieu of.
Right.
Now, how have we been dealing with developments that have frontage along two public streets?
They
Is
have-
it assumed it's sidewalks along the frontage on both public streets?
Yep. That has been what we have done
So that's,
historically. And it is usually right in front of their property. So this is the first time I think I've seen anything across the street. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. But historically, we've always counted the full frontage of all the streets, even if it's a corner. So theoretically, you could require a fee in lieu of for the full frontage on both roadways, which is, to my calculation, about 2,400 feet linear. 40%.
so in theory, we could require fee in lieu of, use the funds at a later time. Casino, according to the proposed schedule, is not going to be open for another 2020, is what I heard.
Yep.
And so until such time we figure things out exactly what it is we're going to be doing. I think Dory had made this suggestion.
So I did get a memo from Len. So at this point, we would be charging $10 per square feet or $50 per linear foot for sidewalk construction. This does not include any state permits or possible requirements. Now with that, you calculate that out to the linear length, and then you take 40%, and that would be the fee in lieu of.
That's assuming that's pretty easy construction. I think as a development team has demonstrated, there are some challenging grades here. So if the town were to initiate this project itself, the monies we would recoup from this wouldn't merely provide a sidewalk network. Because the town would be responsible for associated grading, filling, guide rail if required, whatever it is.
Right, depending on where we decide to put it.
And we're not in the sidewalk
That's what
business.
the option is, though.
Or a combination thereof.
Correct.
But recognizing the constraints on our side of the road would be the
Oh,
same
they're-
constraints
yeah,
when
they're
you put
real.
them in. So it
Exactly.
would make more sense, and also for the point you pointed out, not encouraging a crossing right there at that intersection if we had the sidewalks on our side of the road, which actually would also be problematic for if we had sidewalks on our frontage on Bridge Street as well. So I think construction costs on our side of the street and the burdens and the elevated costs associated with those aren't necessarily the factor because we could do them on Sophia's for much less.
So this is just my opinion only, certainly looking for the feedback of fellow commissioners. What I'd be willing to support is the idea of the construction as shown on the drawings and fee in lieu of everywhere else along the frontage. From, yeah, wherever else it's not shown. Fee in lieu of along Bridge Street as well as the balance of Prospect Hill Road where sidewalk is not being proposed.
And put the sidewalks on Sophia's side.
Yes.
Yes.
Recognizing, yes, I mean, it's a series of balances and compromises. Pedestrian safety versus well, not adversely, having a potential impact on an abutting property.
I agree with you.
And perhaps they could work out some sort of a maintenance agreement with them on their own to help mitigate those concerns with the abutter, with the adjacent property owner.
Joe, you're referring to the southerly end of the southerly portion
Correct.
of the site from the Eversource driveway south, right?
Along your frontage. So I know you're not proposing sidewalks along your entire frontage on Prospect Hill Road, only a portion thereof.
So the remainder of
The remainder in spirit with our regulation. Fee in lieu of. What's that?
And then Bridge Street, yeah.
That's my suggestion to the board.
With the condition that we maintain the sidewalks.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
On Sophia's.
On Sophia's.
Well, I don't know if we can really require that. I think that's.
I don't think
No,
we
that's
could require it.
No, that's
That's their prerogative. We don't require that. That's out of the goodness of their heart.
Again, it's just as a fair and equitable compromise, that's what we have offered. If you don't want to
No, I just.
require us to do that, then certainly don't have to. We just thought we'd be fair because the concern was raised by another business owner and we wanted to respond to that, but if you don't think it's necessary.
Well,
Oh, no, I think it's necessary.
But we're just saying that we can't enforce that.
I don't think we can enforce that.
No, we can't enforce it.
I think they would like it. but
Yes,
I don't think
it would
they
be
have the
nice.
ability to actually require it.
But won't they have to enter into an agreement with
Maintenance
the
agreement.
other property owner?
The building's
To build
they're
them.
in the public right of way.
Okay.
So the way these sidewalk laws are written in Connecticut, the responsible party is delegated to the town. And the town passes it off to whoever they want, and it's usually the adjacent property owner, the way the statutes are written.
And you do have an ordinance that passes it off.
Correct, so that just
generally to the abutting property owner.
complements the state law.
Yeah. But I guess if it's in the state's right of way and not on their property, then,
There's plenty of case law, they're never, ever going to maintain that.
Oh, I was going to say, we can't pass it off to the state.
no, not the
No, no.
state,
No.
not the state. I'm just saying because it's not on their property in the state's right of way, if you chose to condition it on that, then we would accept it. Otherwise, if you want us to talk to the other property owner about being fair with them, then we can do that. It's up to you how you want to implement that.
Well, I'd like to hear from some other commissioners regarding this concept, revised concept of sidewalks, and how other people feel about that.
I'm in total agreement of it. I mean, I definitely would like to see some way to help the property owner, that the burden of maintenance doesn't fall upon them, but to whatever extent that our purview allows.
Anyone else?
I'm willing to accept that, but you have to make an agreement with Sophia's Plaza that is not going to end up being in 5 years or 4 years to say, well, the heck with it, we don't want to do the sidewalk anymore. That's not the idea behind this whole thing.
Absolutely, I understand, and that's kind of why I offered, so you don't have to leave it to, well, what if we can't work out an agreement with them? What if they just flat out say, we don't want the sidewalks here, so we don't even want to talk to you about them? If you incorporate it as a condition of approval, which we are volunteering and accepting, then it resolves the issue and the maintenance is on us.
Sounds like a
Otherwise,
gift.
we're in violation of the permit.
Gift to the town.
Yeah.
What's that? It sounds like.
Sounds like a gift to the town.
So, I mean, it's kind of hard to make us force another individual property owner into an agreement, even though it seems to be for their benefit. I would almost rather see you do it as a condition that we just maintain it.
So with that, I'm not trying to
So
say.
with or without their approval.
Because it's in the
It's
public
not
right
on
of
It's in the right of way anyway.
It's not on their property, right, yeah, exactly.
Not be, expect anything, but in the future, if the casino changed hands or something, or it became, like it didn't work out as a casino, and they still had the sidewalks there. I know, I'm just saying, thinking.
Well, the conditions of approval are going to be in the municipal land records,
Right.
right? So it's.
So whoever owns
It
that
will be
property.
binding
would-
on-
They would
Exactly.
accept that condition, right?
It'll run with the land.
You bought that condition of approval of the property's name, so changes hands. Frankie, your question,
Well,
comment?
philosophically, I've been on the board for over 20 years, and I'm against sidewalks that go nowhere. But I think in this case, Joe, your proposal is a good one. But now my big concern is, what about the safety of the pedestrians that are going to be at the hotel and at the new hotel? Obviously, the casino is not responsible to put sidewalks in there, but maybe they're responsible, or I'd like to see them responsible for providing shuttles to and from certain strategic points. There's no question that this is going to be a place, a destination for certain people that are going to want to spend a couple of nights in the hotel, do their partying, they don't want to drive because they've been drinking, and they're going to walk to the casino. Well, why are they going to walk if they're on Route 5? They're going to get killed.
Uber.
Well,
Usually hotels have their own shuttles.
Seems like that should be up there.
It could fall upon MMCT to provide shuttles. However, it's more often the hotel says, okay, well, we're going to take a shuttle to, you know, this attraction and that attraction, or the airport, so.
That's why you stay at that
that'd be-
hotel.
Yeah, so that, and that is also something that we're trying to incorporate with the warehouse point, some shuttle, remember the trolley concept shuttle?
And this corridor
So-
going from Enfield to South Windsor is going to be excellent, but who knows, it's going to be 20 years from now before anything happens. That's the way the state works. So they're going to open in 2020. In the meantime, people are going to be walking from the hotel, they're going to be walking, they're going to park somewhere along the street. I just wonder, I don't know, what's your experience with Foxwood? Do you provide shuttles from certain locations?
We know that there are shuttles, but I don't know that they're provided by the casino.
Usually around Foxwoods, a lot of hotels, local hotels will have their own services, and promotion comes to their hotel, and then they shuttle you to the casino and they bring you back.
And we wouldn't have an objection to accommodating that type of a, to receiving. But I don't know that we could commit to providing shuttle service to every hotel and however much of the vicinity we wanted us to, regardless of demand and regardless of need. I mean, it's a conversation that maybe if there's a huge demand, maybe the ownership will have future discussions, but I think typically it's a privately run shuttle through the hotel's operations.
That is a real concern of mine. People are going to, someone's going to get killed on Route 5 as soon as you go. I hate to say this, but unless there's some way to get from the hotel down, or from a new hotel that's going to go down to La Renaissance, somebody's going to get killed. Unfortunate. That's my prediction.
Well, the fee in lieu, if you take a fee in lieu for the balance of the frontage, and if you think that from a global planning perspective, extending the sidewalk network in and around here is, then you could certainly allocate some of those funds to that as well.
Is there a reason when you showed it up being on your guys' side of the road, you had a guardrail? Is there a reason you don't need a guardrail on the other side?
The rail is more for the slope drop off.
Yeah.
You know,
But there was also one between I think there was one between the trees and the cars also.
That one's for the slope drop-off. I don't think that the little fence that we showed for saving pedestrians from falling down the hill would keep the car. That's a different type of a fence.
The fence was more for the pedestrians' protection, and the rail for the vehicle.
Okay, not for the pedestrians.
Any other different ideas about sidewalks from the board?
I'd like to see the casino connect to Warehouse Point. I don't know if that's feasible with the distance. If you're saying it's 1,000 feet, that other sidewalk ends and there's little dirt paths the rest of the way on the highway. I'd like to see those two connect.
It'd be desirable, but I think, in my personal opinion, I think it's really outside the purview of the board to require sidewalks beyond their frontage.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, we understand that. It's just a concern that I have.
There's the opportunity of fee in lieu of, we do have a sidewalk fund in town. I know we're contemplating using that for sidewalks in and around, or in Broadbrook Center, right around the the elementary school. So we've been talking about that, but perhaps someone could reprioritize that list, and maybe this is number one on the list. Who knows?
I think it's sort of in the works as they do the parking lot.
A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Take the site.
But where I was going with the site, we know Calamar's a reality. It's happening now. Some of these other approved sidewalks, at least one approved hotel, could just be electric. They have approval, but I don't see any vertical construction there. That may never happen. So if that were to have an active building permit, I would be pursuing more sidewalks along Route 5 along the applicant's frontage, because that approved hotel would be more of a reality. I mean, they've had approvals now for half a dozen years, and there's no shovel in the ground yet.
What about Brick Street?
What about it?
Do you think that there should be sidewalks along there, whether it be now or in the future? feasible, do you think?
Definitely in the future. You know, depending upon the money situation.
If that train thing comes in, as she said,
Oh, it's
there's going to be
coming in,
one.
it's here.
It's here.
Train's already stopping.
16 trains a day.
I'd rather take the fee in lieu of on Bridge Street and just wait and see what the overall plan's gonna be.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's kind of my feeling, I'm just asking.
That's why we're having studies done.
Yeah.
So I think if we were to ask the applicant to put it on their frontage along Bridge Street, I think it'd be like a sidewalk to nowhere. We really haven't fully strategized where
There's
it
no
makes sense.
conductivity onto the
Right.
property.
Right.
There's
We're still
traffic.
fleshing out the details in Warehouse Point.
Mhm.
But financially for the town, wouldn't it make more sense to have them pay 100% instead of 40% too? If they're gonna be there at some point anyway?
Don't know if that's
The
going to be the actual
regulations say
location.
40.
No, he's saying actually construct it.
Yeah, if they built it, then they're paying for the whole project. If they give us 40%, then we're only gonna go less than half as far with the sidewalk.
That's something we struggle with.
That's fine, I think we should have it right.
I also worry about the constructability of the sidewalks along their frontage, south of that new driveway they have. It's an area of wetlands. I don't know if they're quality wetlands or not. There's some slope challenges in that area. I don't know if you can physically put one in. There's all sorts of guide railing all along that area.
And just to be clear, our property line stops just not too far from here. It's not this whole section.
Okay, well, that's
Even less.
But,
even,
yeah. But again, to your point, that actual construction, there could end up being sidewalks to nowhere. It might be a heck of a lot, from a global planning standpoint, to have a heck of a lot better idea to have them on the north side of Bridge Street. Perhaps that there's a better crossing area than in this location right here, where you'd have to go to get to these, which is the prime location that you said was a very long, difficult crossing for pedestrian movement.
it's already long. It's going to be made worse with the number of lanes that
Right.
we added there.
Right, so those do, as you said, really seem like they might end up being a little stub of sidewalk to nowhere and potentially just a waste.
Do we also have a thing that says if we choose where the sidewalk's going, it'd be 50% instead of 40%? Did I read that wrong there last time?
While you research that, is there any other sidewalk or site plan concern?
About the whole plan, did we end up, we didn't talk to the fire marshal or the chief yet?
No, we made the offer to meet, but we were told that he was kind of flat out until his deputy came back, and we haven't heard anything further.
For the chief, we have spoken with the fire marshal.
Oh, yeah, we
So
took
fire
fire
marshal,
marshal
chief,
even
you're waiting
prior
on.
to. Yeah.
Chief, you're waiting on that.
Yeah.
I mean, from an administrative standpoint, we've kind of tossed about a bunch of ideas of what could be looked at or we may potentially do. How do we incorporate any of that stuff into terms of conditions of approval?
What I'm going to suggest is we take a break, a pause, and have Lori craft some additional conditions of approval that she can talk to the applicant about, verbalizing some of the concepts we talk about today, because obviously I know Fuss O'Neill is very good, but they can't draw the plans tonight to
Right.
show us. So this would have to be a written condition of approval. And as they have correctly stated many, many times, the surrounding roadways are under the jurisdiction of others.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go through those state approval processes, it is possible that it conflicts with local zoning. And if that's the case, they're going to be back here visiting us, and we'll be arguing this out all again. We run that risk.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, we'll take 5 and then we'll chat for a few minutes.
So just to be clear, where I was thinking about is writing up a written condition requiring that a median, a physical median be added on Route 140 Route 140, somewhere beginning at Route 5, in the vicinity of the site driveway. So that's what we've been talking about. What else is some things we can talk about? Some of the additional things that the...
Maintenance of the sidewalk?
Maintenance of the sidewalk. We talk about the addition, enhancements to the traffic plan regarding the 91 off-ramps.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Those things as well.
Again, all subject to approval by the state, and are you intending, though, that we will use our best efforts to try and get the state to approve those, but if
Correct.
they don't get approved, do we have to come back here?
Yes, there's to be a change in the site plan.
Okay. Or we could word the condition, use best efforts to incorporate these revisions and have the state approve them.
I guess we could talk about that.
And because if they say no, they say no, and then we're stuck coming back here and almost being in the spot of, you either change the approval and modify it.
Well, the thing is, you'll never get
anything.
You'll never get a seat at the table with the state unless you get local approval. So it's a catch-20. You're in a catch-22
Right.
anyway.
Right, but the local approval, if we just word it such that we highly recommend and please use best efforts to implement these as part of the state approval. However, you know,
I'm against that. I'm against the highly recommend.
I'm sorry?
I am against the highly recommend, that it should be a condition of approval, and if you can't make it work, you gotta come back.
The other option, Dory, is what we could do is continue this approval, continue the meeting for the site plan approval process, kick the can down the road. What you could do is ask for an informal meeting with state DOT. I know you have an NASA Step 2 meeting, and you can approach them about some of these concepts that the commission is contemplating and get their preliminary feedback. And if you can get something to say, this is not going to fly, well, I guess we can talk about it again. I mean, those are the options.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk about that for a
Certainly.
minute while we're in recess.
You know, we don't have to take action tonight,
Yeah.
but you can certainly meet with them informally and say, the town is definitely leaning, it's all in public record, this is where we're going.
Okay, all right, then if we could have 5.
Yeah, well, how about we call it 10? I think we're going to
Sounds
do
good.
10.
More like 20.
How about 15, we'll count.
I think that's good.
We have a motion for a 15-minute break.
I make a motion that we take a 15-minute break.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll be with you in a minute, okay?
Close. You're on an angle.
Retired. Should be looking good. No stress. Yeah, 2 years back. What's going on?
Like at the time. Like the project.
Yeah, we should have had a meeting there Monday, but we got canceled.
I see the dumpster over there.
I see the ball.
Yeah, how good?
I don't know, but I think that you're gonna have to take over to be the chairman until we have a meeting.
Well, I just saw it out today.
You canceled the last meeting, you just tried out. The last meeting's canceled.
Did you go see the sidewalks work?
I just drove by tonight for the first time.
Oh, boy.
No, I haven't seen the sidewalk.
Oh, boy.
Well, I thought it was you at first, maybe I actually, I'm smart enough to do that.
Nice to meet you.
He thinks somebody came down in reverse.
Oh,
And they did.
Same as it
They
is
do that. He
today.
said, oh, yeah? Come on, Penny, come here.
How long were you on the board?
But you can see where it's back.
Yeah, you can.
Quite a while.
And then headed from the main
Oh, north of that.
Well, that's what I thought was coming from him, like, didn't pull out of his gun, it doesn't make sense. Another back.
My ex-husband, yeah.
I used to work with him, or he used to work with us. I'm still at UPS, he's gone now.
Okay, he's, yeah, retired.
Oh, small world, huh? Everybody knows works at UPS, right, Dick?
Hi, how are you? No, those, were brought to my attention, I can't legally look at it because the public hearing is closed. So I cannot take any additional input, information, or the public of any kind. I just can't change. Really? There's no public input of any kind, no, sir. So I can't legally. We had 2 public hearings, all posted in the newspaper.
What do you think Joe said when they stood up? Politely, this is not a public place to sit down. Maybe, pictures.
Hey! They got me the will. I'm on. No.
And they don't, they're not talking about that going.
No, you didn't do it. Let's do this.
Ran it all
Well, what you do
No, I mean, you know,
That's 40 years.
Our council lighted years ago, down at Harvard.
Dictation, you can have a microphone. You can go right on it, understand your person.
He's a legend.
So they look, take off with that thing.
Everything's here right now. Then go back like 7 years.
Conditions of
I saw him show up.
page 4, signage. How come those are not part of the condition of approval? None of those. But they're not.
No, never here.
Did a good job.
68 sheets says.
Maybe they should set up an extra meeting room for when we can't get this meeting.
By that time, they don't care about us.
So we'll say additional conditions.
After today,
I'm kind of rewriting some of those that I heard.
The Chamber of Commerce meeting the other day, I told them they should show up for a public hearing.
Chamber of Commerce, now remember that? I never go.
Yeah, which one do you remember?
East Windsor.
Nobody was there.
mysteries.
Which one you, Enfield?
Yeah, the North Central.
Broad rides all over the place, huh?
I've been on the board there.
Yeah. Anybody show up to that?
I mean,
That's a good one.
essentially,
I've got a lot of work
the
on it.
signage is.
What are those?
That was what I to. They got good events. They got a home show for you.
Can we have it on everything?
First year,
I think you and I need to go for
Well, they need 4.
We're
3 advertising. Don't you come on the books for join? That's nice.
Yeah, you gotta pay for it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't do sweet.
Oh, okay.
Strong.
Yeah. Do you cut trees or everything landscape cut trees?
Like patios, walkways,
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
So, this is why I
That's West
said.
Hartford.
I said.
That's the Berry. Avon.
Bloomfield, Bloomfield, I do a lot of work. Right down Mountain Road, like the other.
Like by Valbrey, condo complex. It's the back way through Mountain.
Is that,
It's a big, it's a high apartment complex.
is that what we're talking about, things like that?
Kind of. Yeah, Bill Moore,
Yeah, did work there last week. They
There last week.
I was getting church for a lady who was very particular. She wanted her dog with maintenance company into her job.
They all got the same.
Yeah, you can.
That's the one that has like the reverse, looks like it's gear.
Number 1, 2, 3.
So many little places out of it.
I didn't get a chance to.
That's when you drive down the hill and the water fountain and make it win a bet.
And I worked there because I do work for her son. Lives in down there, a big red color. Like 13 houses on Gilmore Road. We're planting trees and building like bluestone walkways.
You donate those big ones were like $150,000 to $200,000. I think we're able they put up great deals.
Put all these papers.
Okay.
Oh, hey, you're here?
It's my backyard.
How much for that? That's about 60 grand.
Looks big.
3,556 papers. I remember that number because I put them all down. I did that all myself.
I come over there and I sit down at the chair. I sit down at that chair right there and I sit there after the drink and I go, look at that nice fire pit.
That's right.
That's my chair. Right there. It's there right there.
Did you build that?
No, I hired someone. I can't stack stuff like that.
So I sit there and I go,
But I put the papers in. Another circle pack there, another swing there.
Can you light them all?
Yeah, there's a lot of work.
until the fireworks goes off.
I like figuring the weight, like we did a pool patio a couple weeks ago and it's a 72,000 pound.
It was 17 pallets.
Could we correct the conditions of approval that they have
60,000 pounds
rather than?
Well, they couldn't deliver it in one trip.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight.
What do you do in the winter time?
What would it look like? Can you talk about it?
Not anymore. I cut trees. I got a spot in Maine. I've been working on my house. So we got the farm.
Yes.
You run across the flicker over there. Yeah, it's like a trip.
Their house is my house.
Yeah. I did, that's your parents? Okay.
Yep. My parents they own it for something.
They only go
try to negotiate.
I didn't work for your dad.
I think I saw you there like 5
It was like 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you don't have the quad over there. I think this is the red one, the red one right there. Yeah, you did. Yeah, he wanted to bring you over, but I said, not here.
Yeah, do it. We had our wedding there.
Oh yeah, that's definitely you. I saw you truck across the street and I kind of put two together. Oh, right there.
I live on Rockville Road right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm still renewing that.
I mean, they can go back and.
Oh, sweet.
Go for it.
I know I got somebody now for when I'm putting patches down. Where's the old?
I sold my saw already. I sold it this week.
Oh, yeah?
The wet saw, yeah.
We treat it with, those outdoor freaks. You do those outdoor freaks in the kitchens and crap or no? Yeah. Kitchens and stoves.
Yeah, those are nice.
Somebody's been, it's been 100 grand. Big waterfalls, the lights.
Especially with the Cal water
I do a lot of walkways. I got quite a few trucks. I got it set up so that I can show up and
Yeah, so in front of the whole house, they did a capstone block wall that across the whole front, and then I don't know if you picture
It's
the.
ambitious.
Oh yeah, I went back to my younger.
That was 10 years ago. 20 years ago.
Now the boys were there. Yeah, but this is. Yeah. That's my son. That's the one that cut it off. They just sold it.
So what do you put down for a base? You're using millions for a base?
I do three-quarter process. I got it from Honeywell. That's the best stuff. Do they have a geotextile fabric?
Yep.
My house, right?
Nice screw with this chip. It's like a phase chip. Keeps the same. Just little chips down.
Yeah, I did it for all the bases to fill up.
That's like the ICPI certified way. The way I do it, it's gonna be the way.
I use place hands, that good?
That'll work. Yeah, as long as it drains. But this chip stone that I've been using, there's less moisture on the pavers. So some of the newer pavers that have like the color on the top, you'll get some moisture working out. It's Portland. But there's limestone coming out, so when you put it on the sand, it adds more moisture. So.
Where do you get pavers from? Not Home Depot?
I got those all came from the week. So
okay.
could be wrong.
You can.
Martins.
Okay. You do a Jamie over there.
Yeah.
See, that's the problem.
Yeah, site one at Windsor, I was working on a lot of stuff. They carry everything out.
You think about my trade, pavers matter, it doesn't matter. Wire's wire.
That's true. Yeah.
If I here, wire.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in some of the pavers.
Just price.
There's some pavers we didn't have last year, I was looking at this year, and came out perfect. And some of the pavers, we usually deposit in them, over the winter, the tops, these were like those smoother, temporary. There was this Italian guy who wanted everything square and smooth. So it's all smooth, and there's like little chips out, so the clay was in it. Dug it out, that was unilateral.
How about the architect practice? Is that really pretty good? Yeah, keep it Think a lot more expensive. I just see the commercial on TV.
The ones I got a full depth color too. You find out when you start cutting them.
Oh yeah, quarter inch like a grain.
There's definitely a difference. I use all kinds of, last week we used some from Maine that were, I had the demo saw that I cut everything with, the curves in it. Usually zip right through it, this one's the hardest.
Really?
Hardest paper I've ever had. And it made a big difference going from like the CST to the Chinese, I think. I asked them, like, oh, those are 12,000 CSI. The other ones are like 4,000.
Oh,
yeah, so there is definitely a difference.
Well, that's a good thing. I didn't think about that. You think you're doing a driveway, you use regular paper. People use their regular paper. You can't do that, huh?
I mean, if they do 4,000 PSI, if you just put cars over it, and then commercially, you're going to get it.
Yeah, what commercial's going to do paper?
Like what's all of them.
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, but they use a level though.
Yeah.
Sackmore.
Got a guy that we work with, this guy, Jim Fado. Oh, yeah. He does the stamp concrete.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't it's like sometimes it's a little cheaper than the favors, but the favors if something breaks, you can go up.
Yeah, stamp great. That's good for like an out, if you're gonna do like an outdoor, like a square or something.
Surrounds.
Yeah, that sounds nice. You gotta find the right guy to do it.
So yeah, some of the last ones we did this with Taj, they did the coating, you stamp concrete, and it looks better than the natural stone. You do the natural stone coating sometimes.
Good to know. See, I got stamp creek guy. That's kind of what it was. Right? They've been, you know, they got my
When you're really at the casino.
Because it ain't gonna happen.
Good MGL.
Right.
Tell them that.
We may have to end up there at your 50th.
I know we're doing. I'm going to wait for it. I know we're doing. That's what anything.
That's coming up soon.
When Bob was at that myself.
There you go.
Hey, I am.
Oh yeah? You got everything picked out?
Maybe. Well, look at. We're gonna go up there today.
At 9 degrees.
Yes.
Oh, we're gonna fill it.
They're all filled.
Oh, the third one's full of kid toys.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my quad, my street. So it's well, they're in toys, so I'll try it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, toys don't have them.
I'll try them.
I sold a few more quads last year.
You wanna buy one? I got my R1, which is price rock.
You could yourself.
Like a, company of home, like, years old, so on a wrap. And then, I bought the big, I bought the big inch, 95 big inch. Wrapped around the water.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you find that one?
Going along, picked it up.
Especially fly fishing.
$3,000, it wasn't, you know, very expensive. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
32.
Oh, yeah.
Missouri River.
But yeah, Raptor, I was thinking it's on the Raptor, anything was on the R1.
And actually, a lot of the streams coming out of the mountains and everything else,
The riding part of it
right now.
You still got
You still got that?
You gotta side by side.
Wait for it to calm down.
Oh, it's
No,
coming.
I'm looking at a
Snow
spider.
coming.
Oh, okay.
because we were on one highway.
My buddy's got those, they're right up through.
London, on Beartooth Highway, left Hills.
Yeah, it's hard to get trails everywhere. You need wide trails.
No, what you're talking about the spider.
That's something, right?
The three-wheel bike.
Oh, okay.
They go out with a whole bunch of them.
You go ride with him, go to all the wineries, throw the wives on the back, go to the wineries.
Is that what you do?
We go in the car now, so that's my plan. Oh, no, well, I like going to Taylor Brook's my favorite, up there in Woodstock.
My daughter would.
Get that passport, the Connecticut Wine Trail book. Last year we hit 60.
Oh, that's good. Did you go out there?
Very, very.
Out there and it was open. Went to 3 wineries.
The last one he was driving together for a bottle of wine.
We said that they were about to pick the basket, munching a little bit, now
It should get better as you go through. It was a chocolate way.
Taste it, he was like, oh, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one.
I'm not a big wine guy. I like whatever you know.
Who was that distiller? That was worth the ride. We're doing a job out there, so I went to pick up our final check and we saw a nice chocolate place. It was a sign for it down the road.
Good check, right?
It was. You gotta drive out there. I'll finish up so you can check there. Just say it's driving a long way. We're gonna stop at
John's kind of my plan on the way back from Ashford. I was gonna go to Kentucky and hit some of those bourbons on get the whole bourbon trail there in Kentucky.
So there's a gentleman that's maybe one of your colleagues, Bob, tends to service hundreds of thousands of people.
Go down there and you get a bunch
Your agency.
Our biggest airport down
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Had some guys down there, they introduced me to Woodford bourbon.
Yeah, you get the bourbon balls. The little chocolate balls with the bourbon.
Small.
Are you eating my candy?
Nice guy, all that, but there's certain people it's all his girl.
No, no, I didn't. I can choose this way.
Our attorney in there, back in the day, before she left to go to Texas.
Switching up.
I was.
She watched one great who's bottle. I think they like the tag.
And that's the $40.
Whatever it is, it's good for a lot of people. I put it in my cranberry.
Good friends with Jamie, yeah.
Probably should. Big bottle of freaking things like
She added another Mowat, I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe she that's her married name.
That's her
married name. I
that
don't
was-
know how she
Her
incorporated
dad's
it.
name.
Oh, okay.
My wife should be returning on that.
Why did you call her? Yeah, I heard she wasn't coming.
But the person at DOT, I always liked the building was in Belleville. There's certain people that it's like I couldn't ever get it done. The other one I always liked was
No way.
It's totally straight shot.
Yeah, I was there last week. Every inch of the place.
I remember the last meeting I had with him, because he was on his way out, and we were talking about a one-way.
Yeah, right. I don't believe that.
Have it done and go Andy ride back on the
Yep.
The tree fell down, you hooked up, they run the tree fell, or cut the tree out. So if you go, on the track, it goes down, it goes up and around, back down, you can't do it anymore.
Well,
They were doing it.
what I'm thinking is, I know, look, this is,
The banshee out there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's why I'm
We.
You guys are gonna go, that's usually when I go to. Yeah, just Sunday. When those guys show up, like, oh, I'm like, I'm sure sometimes I'm chasing them. There was a group of them that kind of threatened. It was like, I was 50. They had like tattoos. I was the only one in my group that was carrying, so. don't really care. There's only 6 residents.
There was one in
I It's a good back now. We were on back to all the Bell Street. They did show up. All these guys, we were moving from, I don't know if they ever did anything about it,
I know that.
So you're not the only one I'm up there.
60 feet? It's down my house.
30 years.
It's down here.
Joanne's, Joanne Fabric. Yeah, there's a restaurant across the. It's expensive.
First, like, what's called.
They're expensive. And then there's a Five restaurant right around the brick.
I rode backwards. I went out to the and there was a cop car. It was like just we rode right through because there was like 8 people right there.
The point you always should come up on the tracks. I have a buddy of mine who does, he does up. People his house.
Slip right through there.
I cross by the power.
Oh yeah. That's where you go now. I just go from the farm. That's where.
So yeah, you're parking right
down there.
What that shape?
We just cruised.
I can remember.
I was with that Alan girl.
I'm 40.
That's a long time, right?
There's no Sophia.
Oh, the other, oh, the other.
Double lane road.
Well, this way, someplace out there, you can't even get out there. I think on the second road here. You can't even, I think second year.
Yeah, because that's the
Traffic trash.
Yeah, 700.
I don't know, they didn't expose them all.
They're heavy.
Yeah, but you can't walk down 2 sections here going around that.
I mean, it's still worth it.
I like the, but it's that, how that's more power than the
Freaking, the Raptor has my ramps a little freaking.
No, they don't keep on.
Well, like ours, I stand straight up. You ain't doing out. Come on. They're about a ramp for every 2 minutes.
Oh, they got you, that's how they did that.
Well, no, I wouldn't get lifted.
Yeah, that's in my road, though. That's bigger than that. I still got a lot of. Like 6'3", 6'4".
We are ready, yes, as soon as Lori is.
Yeah, they're gonna give me a time.
That's a different area.
Now you owe me the time.
We get started in 2 minutes. Lori's just writing something down.
Running out of room.
Oh, we got the back.
And no one will be able to.
John Star right there. Call the meeting back to order at 8:33. So, Dory, what did you and others decide to do?
We are fine with accepting the conditions of approval that you required for the discussed off-site traffic improvements. And if for some reason the state says they don't like any of those, then we will return here to seek a modification and discuss them with you at that time. But we don't expect too much.
I wouldn't think, usually it's a collaborative effort between the state officials and local officials.
Oh, God.
They want to see it work as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fine with us. And the other conditions, we just kind of wordsmithed, but they were all the things that we had discussed and offered tonight.
Including the one about the suggestion that Ann had made regarding the electric vehicle.
Yes,
okay.
yeah, we will,
Receptive
we'll make
to that?
provisions to incorporate some
Okay.
within the plan.
Thank you.
Did we ever nail down hours of operation for construction?
Yes.
Saturdays and
Yeah.
truck trips per day and all that good stuff?
You know, we certainly had a discussion. I had some concerns, and my concerns were satisfied, but I'm just wondering, though, if we really, if those are typically nailed down in a zoning permit. You know, I think there's some loose interpretation. I mean, that's more a question for staff, whether or not we really need a sharpen a pencil and put exactly the hours. Because there's some you know, they said that they weren't going to be working weekends unless their construction schedule warranted it.
And I'm sure they don't want to work Saturdays because that costs more money for overtime. Especially
Yeah,
being-
they're not going to be regularly scheduled work days. It really will be only if necessary due to weather delays and things like that.
Being a union build, I'm sure they're paying top rate.
Quicker it's built, the faster they make money.
Faster it all gets done and everybody sees the benefit from it, right?
So I assume we're going to vote on this tonight.
In a few minutes, I'd like to have that conversation. So Lori is distributing some additional conditions of approval that we've been all flushing out in the last 15, 20 minutes or so. All in line of what?
Has it been that one?
You did some excellent work. Does everyone have a copy?
Not everybody, no, but.
I have extras.
There's some extras.
Okay.
Well, I gave.
Okay, so Dick and I can share those, and then you can share with all the other ones. Can you take mine if you need another set? Oh, okay, thank you. Just give the commission members just a few minutes just to familiarize with the wording is.
I'll just leave that.
I do want to say for the record, I do appreciate the effort that yourself and the development team has made trying to make reasonable accommodations to do the right thing.
Thank you. We want it to be just as much of a success for us as for you.
Right.
We really do. We'll be a good partner.
That's why I wanted you to come here.
So does any member of the commission have any other issue they would like to bring up for discussion that we haven't already talked about or unclear about something?
Is the Sophia's sidewalk deal in here?
Yes.
24.
Which one?
24. Yep.
Okay. Okay. There's a script.
Now, if we do vote on this tonight, that is also giving a yes to all the plans as presented.
Well, what do you mean, like off-site plans or all the site plans? The entire, all the reference plans? Yeah, the entire
Right.
package,
Yeah,
yes.
the whole package.
So if you've got questions that you'd like to bring up regarding the, anything, regarding details, it's understood that regarding the site plan approval process, we would just be asking for clarification of some things and some, not wholesale changes.
Correct.
For clarification, right. You already have your general development permit in place. But yeah, if you have a question, certainly.
No,
Okay.
if we weren't gonna finish this tonight, that's a big help, but I have walked the whole entire site, and it would have been nice to stripe some lines down there, like, this is the building perimeter, this is, because it looks small there, but it's not, it's a big area. But hopefully you will, I won't ask you to do that.
Did you guys have a detail on the sign that goes on the highway? Was that?
It's 8960.
Oh, just the, it's not a detail, but no, like color, kind of what it's going for.
I can actually show
The rendering, I should say.
this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just had the black and white version, so I didn't see the rendering.
So the only part of that sign that will actually be digital is the lower half. Is that correct?
Yes, on two sides.
On two sides.
It's something like that.
And I know you folks have mentioned in the past about it, but I certainly encourage you as you go through the state approval process to pursue attraction signing on the interstate. So further emphasize the exit that we want people to get off. That's a fairly simple process to ask for that. Right. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for site plan approval.
We need the motion to accept first.
No, we've already done that. So,
Yeah, you got to read the motion.
yeah,
Joe, who is voting tonight?
no, all 5 regular members. So, it should be the condition number 4, correct? The associated conditions and the new add-ons.
The new add-ons, which are
The last page in red.
Okay, you have it right now.
make a motion to approve the application of MMCT Venture LLC requesting a site plan approval for a commercial recreation casino use with restaurants, retail, bar, and office uses and associated site improvements to be located at 105 Prospect Hill Road, East Windsor, Connecticut. In the HIZ zone, this approval is granted subject to conformance with reference plans as may be modified by the conditions. There will be conditions 1 through 11 on page 5 and conditions 12 through 26 on page 6.
We don't need to read the additional conditions.
We do need to read them. Okay.
Yes. Those are not part of the record yet.
The additional conditions are signage. Number 19, digital signs shall be subject to conditions 1 through 7 on page 4 of this memo. Condition 20, that a raised island divider be provided on Route 140 between Route 5 and the casino right in and out drive. Condition 21, I-91 northbound off-ramp, exit 45 at Route 140 to be restriped to maximize the length of the dual right turn lanes. Condition 22, I-91 northbound off-ramp exit 44 at Route 5 and Newbury Road be restriped to provide a left turn lane, a shared left turn and through lane, and 2 right turn lanes. Number 23, conditions numbers 20 through 22 are subject to OSTA approval. Should these modifications be denied, the applicant will be required to seek a modification of its site plan. Number 24, applicant shall maintain sidewalks in front of Sophia's Plaza as proposed on approved site plan. 25, a fee in lieu of sidewalks shall be required for the frontages without sidewalks along Prospect Hill Road and Bridge Street. Number 26, the applicant shall demonstrate consideration has been given to traffic generated emissions by pursuing opportunities to incorporate electric vehicles charging on-site to facilitate and promote emission vehicles, zero emission vehicles. Yeah, this is in reference to
First page.
the memo, the application, the memo from Lori Witten, CZEO, AICP, dated June 7, 2018, revised June 21st, 2018.
There's a motion on the table for approval of the site plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. One more special meeting.
Celebrate tonight.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
To adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Boy, that was easier than, that was easier than last.
Their job. Easier than the gravel.
It's easier than gravel.
Thanks for it.
Yeah, and thanks for the almost
No problem. See you there.
Thank you. Good luck, and I hope you're using success.
Hope it's a good partnership.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right, so she's got mine.
It's on her computer. She can sign it.
Venues who need to provide outside venues or establishments, like hotels.
I gotta go back to using work in the office.
I know that came up.
Oh, good.
I'm sure they want you a really high roll.
Well, that's all you're. That's it, we got Ubers.
That's no problem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good suggestion.
You guys want these back?
Thank you.